Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I'm here with my friend Susan Patton, aka the Princeton Mom. How you doing today, Susan?
I'm doing really well, boys. Doing really well.
Good, good. Now you do know that our videos set a record on my channel for the number of thumbs down that we
Yes,
get.
I know.
Yeah, you.
It's unfair. It's absolutely unfair. It is unfair. I read all of the comments. I'm stunned by the number of people who they just flat out hate me because and come on, let's be bigger than that. I do have shout outs, by the way. Let me get the shout outs out of the way. Toussaint's Wrath, Mecca Choo 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 Chee Choo, Chicago News, D Smooth, Roy Vannon, The Way, Despice One, Explicit J, Quaido Rad, Killer of White Supremacy and Coons, C23, Damaker, I'm My Own President, and Mr. Derek 20,000. Okay. Get that out of the way. Why do so many of these people they hate me on sight? I don't get that. It makes no sense to me. I am not the enemy, and I don't see you as the enemy. I don't see our viewers as the enemy. I don't see why we're in a conflict that has to be an us against them. Let me understand.
So you feel like they hate you because you're white?
Yes, I do.
Interesting.
Some of them say that. Some of them they flat out say, "You are an ignorant white devil bitch."
Oh, okay.
You know what? I don't think that's a particularly kind thing to say. I don't care for that not one bit. And it's okay that we don't agree. My goodness, you and I don't agree on hardly anything. But name calling? I don't think so. I don't think that advances the idea of harmony and understanding.
Well, we got to remember. I mean, how many people called you an evil white devil bitch? Not many. I'm sure it was just one, right? So
No,
you, well, no. I'm sure there were people who didn't like you for various reasons, and then do they dislike you because you're white? I don't think that's true because we have white people that say stuff and black people appreciate it. I think it's a matter of what the white person is saying. I think that's what can drive opinion. Now, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with people who agree with some of your opinions. I think that if someone just doesn't like anything you say, that's very different from somebody who says, okay, I don't like those things you said, but this thing over here I can agree with. And I think that makes for a better conversation in general.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Last week, one of the things that we talked about that got everybody all riled, we were talking about the election, and what is it about the African American community that they're voting for Hillary or that they're voting for Bernie, that they're voting Democratic? Do they think they're going to get free stuff? Is that really why they're voting Democratic? Well, a lot of people did not care for that comment, not one bit.
I was one of them. I didn't like it either. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the term free stuff. No, we got to kill that. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, who doesn't love free stuff? I love free stuff. Everybody loves free stuff. But there's got to be a better reason for you to cast a vote for a candidate. So I'm asking you, help me understand, because I've been following the election returns, I've been following the primaries and the caucuses so intensely with such interest. I'm trying to understand why ever does the black community support Hillary Clinton in such large numbers? It makes no sense to me. Hillary Clinton's not going to be good for the blacks. Hillary Clinton's husband, Bill Clinton, it was his administration that enacted the laws that incarcerated black people in such extraordinary number. Help me understand, what is it about Hillary Clinton that is so appealing to the black community that they supported her to the tune of 85% in last night's vote? What is it? What am I not seeing here? Why ever does the black community think that Hillary Clinton is somehow going to be good for them?
Well, I think what you see is that there are a lot of people who've grown to love the Clintons over the years, for whatever reason. Remember, in the 90s, people mistakenly referred to her husband Bill as the first black president, right. And they've seen the Clintons for years. I mean, they're not going to go run off and vote for Trump, that's for sure. And a lot of people aren't aware of Bernie Sanders; they don't know who he is. So in a way, it's sort of a spillover from what you saw when Obama ran. When black people didn't know who Obama was, they voted for Hillary. And then when they found out who Barack was, they said, "Oh, well, this is a better option." So they all flocked over to Barack. And so now that Barack's gone, for some people, they see Hillary as the next best option.
Why? But what about Hillary is appealing?
Well, it's not about. I mean, none of the candidates are appealing. Remember that you're being offered the choice between a dinner of rotten eggs or spoiled chicken. Like you're not. Nothing is appealing on the table. Let's be
Right.
clear about that. The question is which meal is going to kill you the quickest. And so the idea of black people running to support Donald Trump is just kind of dead. There's no, and it's interesting because there's really not much Trump could say to get the majority of African Americans to support him, because his language comes off as xenophobic and very scary, to a lot of people. Just the approach that he's taking. I really, but the thing is, I really wonder if Trump could have gotten the black vote if he'd taken a different kind of approach. I don't know. But I will say Trump is out as an option. Next, you got Clinton and Sanders. A lot of black people don't know Bernie Sanders. He's an old white guy as far as they're concerned. Honestly, though, my friends who have taken the time to look at Sanders' platform have actually said, I think I like that guy. I like because Hillary Clinton, she comes off to a lot of people as kind of the mistress on the plantation, who expects her slaves to be loyal, and as you mentioned, the incarceration issue with black males is something that still burns my gut to this day. And so I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. A lot of my friends are not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, if you look at, the fact that Clinton won Mississippi and lost Michigan to Sanders, there's a difference, right? Because if you talk, at least among the African American vote, there's a difference in mentality between black people in Mississippi, where there were so many plantations, and black people in Michigan, where the thinking can be more progressive. And that, I think, makes all the difference in the world.
Well, what is the difference? What is the difference? Why do black people in Mississippi think that Hillary is the answer when black people in Michigan don't? Understand. I don't understand.
It goes back to the plantation. States that had the most black slaves tend to be the most backward in terms of racial progress. If you go down,
that Mississippi is voting for Hillary because they're backward.
I wouldn't say everybody in Mississippi is backward, but what I will say is that there's, Mississippi was a place where there was slavery. They have a mindset. It's a different mindset. It's not as progressive. It's not as pro-black. For example, if I go give a speech in Michigan and I say black people should build our own businesses, build our own communities, etc., I might get a better reception in the North than I would in the South, where there's sort of a comfort with black oppression. Don't get me wrong. There are lots of progressive black people in the South, but it's just different. When I go to Texas, a lot of black people there don't get me. They say, well, wait, what are you doing? You're standing up to the white folks? You can't stand up to the white folks, and so really, and it's not disconnected to the fact that slavery took place in those states. Slavery impacts the way people think today. States where there were no slaves have black people who think very differently from states where there were lots of slaves. Okay. So it's all about a slave mentality. It's basically
I understand that, but help me to understand how that translates into me, black person in Mississippi with my slave mentality, I'm going to vote for Hillary.
Well, because you're not going to vote for Trump because you see him as a racist. You're not going to vote for Sanders because you don't really know him, or you see him as an old white guy.
But you just said that Hillary is seen as, is it called a Miss Ann? Is that right? Is that what that's called? Yes. So Hillary is seen as a Miss Ann. Why would anybody vote for her? Why would any black person?
Remember, a lot of the slaves liked Miss Ann. They felt Miss Ann, she was good. She treated them as well as a nigger could be treated. That's really, that you really have black people that think that way. They'll talk about good white folks and Mr. Charlie, he treats the black folks good over at the factory. You kind of got this kind of mindset sometimes where they appreciate benevolent white people who are not as mean to them as other white people are. But that's the thing. Well, that's the thing though. At least she appears that way. But then the other thing too is, remember, you got to look at the choices. You got to look at the fact that the only choices you have if you're black for a lot of people are Clinton or Sanders. If you're in Mississippi, there's a good chance you don't know much about Bernie Sanders. Again, he just looks like an old white guy. So you say, okay, but I know Hillary Clinton. In fact, her husband was the first black president. I'm going to vote for her. And Hillary Clinton is also campaigning in those states, and she's making her presence seen. She's showing up in the churches and singing the old Negro spirituals, and some black people get comfortable with that.
Why wouldn't black people in Mississippi vote for Cruz or vote for Marco Rubio or vote for Ben Carson?
Because that's all a joke, because they're all Republicans, and Republicans don't get the black vote.
So just by definition, a black person is not going to vote for a Republican.
I'm not going to say any black person will. There are a lot of black Republicans, and there are a lot of smart black Republicans out
yes,
here.
There are.
Who,
Sure.
but the problem is the Republican Party just has a horrible branding image, and they just seem to hold on to that for whatever reason. And when you get into conversations about affirmative action or police brutality, and the Republicans, sort of speak the old rich white guy line, that these things are not a big deal, they don't exist, or whatever, or I fight racism by believing we should have a colorblind society. Nobody wants to hear that crap. No, there's not. I don't know a single black person who believes we have a colorblind society until it's convenient for white people to have a colorblind society. Then it's like, oh yeah. Now that we've taken all of your stuff, and now that we've oppressed you for 400 years, we're going to pretend like we have a colorblind society, which will keep us from having to actually repair the things that we ruined in the first place. Nobody wants to hear that crap. I don't want to hear it.
We don't have a colorblind society. We've never had a we never will. We'll never be colorblind. We'll never be gender blind. Come on. We understand that we live among people with whom we share many similarities, but with whom we have differences. Okay that we have differences. We don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to think the same. But I'm tumbling over in my mind what you just said about how the people of Mississippi voted and why they opted for Hillary Clinton. You're saying what you just said, and correct me if I didn't understand this properly. You said reflexively they will not vote for a Republican. That's it. They just won't. Mm-hmm. And they don't know Bernie Sanders. How do you not know Bernie Sanders? That sounds almost like you said the people in Mississippi, the black people in Mississippi, are sort of too out of touch or too ignorant or too uninformed to even know that Bernie Sanders is an option.
It's not to indict all of Mississippi, but it's just like I'm from Kentucky, and I can't speak for every black person in Kentucky. But remember, Kentucky supported Trump, and because there's a predominant mentality in the state of Kentucky that kind of leans in a very weird direction when it comes to race. So, sorry,
the state wasn't Kentucky a slave state?
Yes. And so again, you go the further south you go. I just believe that that the Clintons have a deeper stronghold. It may be the amount of time they spent there campaigning, the familiarity, or whatever. And also remember, people in Mississippi, black people inherently are pretty conservative. That's why the Republicans are kind of missing out on an opportunity. If they could somehow, make their platform a little more flexible, I think they could attract a lot of conservatives. I have conservatives in my own family who actually do vote Republican. My mother loves Dr. Ben Carson. I think that if my father hadn't come along, she would have married Ben. And so I don't fault her for that. I don't think that makes her stupid. She read his book. I forgot what it was called. The book, I think Gifted Hands.
Right.
Yeah. And my mother used to talk about Dr. Ben Carson as an example for what we can become in our lives if we work hard. So there are things that are endearing about Ben Carson, the person. But unfortunately, when he attaches himself to the Republican Party so he can get access to their money, he becomes less endearing as Ben Carson, the candidate.
What should he be? Who should he be?
You know what I wish. Let me tell you what I wish. I wish that Ben Carson had Donald Trump's money so he could run run a campaign, a no nonsense campaign, the way Trump is running, where he just does what he feels. I would trust Ben Carson's instincts better than I trust Donald Trump's instincts. I think Donald Trump's a little too full of himself. But I think Ben Carson is again, he's a surgeon. To me, a surgeon is a person who's going to be careful about everything he does. Because he's got life or death in his hands.
No, I completely agree. But I think the commonalities between Ben Carson and Donald Trump are not insignificant. These are both men of extraordinary accomplishment in very different fields, obviously, in very different fields. And they're certainly of very different mentalities. My gosh, I mean, Ben Carson is such a gentle, elegant, soft-spoken, charming man. Donald Trump, maybe not so much. He's got what Ted Cruz called those New York sensibilities, that New York value, which, maybe it appeals to me because I too share those New York values. We're a little rougher. We're a little more, in your face.
Mean. So let me say.
So not mean. So not mean.
No, but let me say that. Let me jump in and say this though about Carson. I don't think Ben Carson and Donald Trump are equally accomplished. If Ben Carson had started where Donald Trump started, he would probably still be very successful. If Donald Trump had started where Ben Carson started, I don't think so. Because Ben Carson started with nothing. Donald Trump started with millions of dollars in his trust fund from his daddy. Now, I don't compare those two. I think that Carson's achievements, I think they required a little bit more determination. He had to overcome quite a few more obstacles in his life. Whereas when I look at Trump's career objectively, I'm more objective about Trump than a lot of my friends. A lot of my friends will say, "Oh, Trump's a racist," and I'll just say, "Okay, well, tell me what he said that clearly shows he's racist." They'll say, "Well, he said that all Mexicans were rapists," and I said, "No, actually, right." And exactly, I go back to that point. I say, "Actually, did he really say all Mexicans are rapists, or did he say that the government sends over certain people
that they don't want?"
Right. And is that true? Is there any truth to that? Because I do think that there are countries that make fun of the United States for the way we conduct our foreign policy and our the way we, sort of, how can I say this? The way we're just so open and friendly to everybody who wants to come here, and they don't have the same attitude. You know what I mean? Like other countries are not as open and liberal about sort of trying to accept everyone as we are, or accept other ideas. If they think you're going to hurt them, they're going to kill you. Period. You go to other countries in the Middle East, especially. They don't have the same civil liberties. So again, I think so with Trump. When I look at him objectively, what I see is a person who's not stupid. He's bold. I respect that. He has accomplished quite a bit. He did take what his father gave him and made more out of it. So God bless him for that. But on the short end of the stick, I see.
Wait a minute! Don't stop there. Look at his family. Look at his children. This says so much to me that his children are they're well educated. They're well spoken. They certainly seem committed to him, and we haven't always seen that. I mean, do you remember Ronald Reagan's kids did not approve of him and were sort of outspoken? Do you remember that?
I remember
outspoken in their disapproval of him.
Didn't he have a daughter that was? Well, no, that was Dick Cheney who had the daughter that was the lesbian.
She's still a lesbian. That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. But I remember she wasn't just a lesbian, but didn't she have an issue with the Republican Party? I think Ronald Reagan had a son that was the same way. Yeah, was it Chris Reagan or something? Is that his name?
I think it was young Ron Reagan, actually. I think his name is Ron.
Oh, wow.
But the point is that Trump has 5 kids, granted from 3 wives. I don't love that so much. But the kids are all, none of them are druggy morons, which so frequently children who come out of wealth tend to be. His children all seem to be accomplished. They have it together. They're dignified. Well, the young one, I don't know how young the young one is, but his 3 grown children are all admirable, I think, and very committed to him. That says something to me. It's not easy being a parent. It's not easy, and I think he's done that well. The fact that he's been married a few times, I don't love that, but I don't care. I don't care that he's been married a few times. I care that he has the ability to get stuff done. Just get it done. One of the things that I'll always think about when I think of Donald Trump, 20 years ago when my kids were very little, they were babies, they were 2, 3, 4 years old, the ice skating rink in Central Park, Woolman Rink, had fallen into disrepair, and it was year after year after year the city talked about resurrecting this ice skating rink. I don't know what goes into building an ice skating rink, but what I know is that New York City, it was just year after year after year. They couldn't figure out how to restore the ice skating rink. Finally, Donald Trump came in. 6 months later, bam, we have an ice skating rink. It's up, it's done, no muss, no fuss. And I thought, thank God that it got done by the good graces of Donald Trump early enough that my children can still enjoy it in their childhood. So, it's funny, many New Yorkers who lived in New York 20 years remember this. The city couldn't get it done. Nobody can get it done. Donald Trump said, "You know what? Just get out of my way. Let me just put up the goddamn, ice skating rink and let's be done with this." And he did. And it's still up and it's fabulous. And the city has been able to enjoy it for decades. So what I appreciate about Donald Trump is he gets it done, knows how to get stuff done. And I think we're at a place in our nation's history where that matters. I don't really care for his language so much. I don't care for, I don't care for a lot of what he says. I don't care for the way he says it in many instances. I don't care for the fact that he's been married 3 times. I don't care for, there's a lot about him that is pretty icky and pretty skeevy. But you know what? I don't care. I want somebody in the White House who is going to take care of business, get it done, keep us safe, restore jobs, restore the economy, bring jobs back to the country that we have lost over the decades through poor management, through poor governmental management. Is he the answer? I don't know. Honestly, I'm going to have to hold my nose if it comes down to voting for Donald Trump, because I don't like the idea of doing it. And it's sort of horrifying to think this is where we are. This is where we are. We are down to Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is just one of my least favorite people on the planet. I can't stand this woman. I have always hated this woman since 1992, when she was on 60 Minutes with Steve Kroft and talking about her husband's presidential bid. And she said, well, if you expect me to stay home and bake cookies, like, thinking, man, you're trashing women who stay home and bake cookies? I stay home and bake cookies. What's your problem with my staying home with my kids and baking cookies? And everything she's done since then has just made me hate her more, because she is a hateful, despicable person who probably is going to wind up being indicted in the next couple of months. So I think that the Democrats better hustle themselves up and get somebody else, because I don't think it's going to be her. I don't think she's going to be eligible to run. But I'm going to keep my opinion to myself, as I always do. No, so I don't think it's Hillary. Ted Cruz, although I wish I could vote for Ted Cruz, because he's a Princeton guy, and we haven't had a Princeton man in the White House since Woodrow Wilson, so I would so love to see another Princeton man in the White House, but that's not going to happen, because everybody hates Cruz. The way I feel about Hillary, everybody feels about Cruz. So what are we down to? We're down to crazy Donald Trump. And he's crazy. He's nuts. But, they said that about Teddy Roosevelt as well, that he was nuts. I don't know. It's staggering to think that this is what it. I think you and I should run. We should run. I just can't decide who should be on the ticket, who should be at the top of the ticket. Would you be my VP, or would I be your VP?
Nah, you know what? I would rather be the people in the background who control the presidency secretly with billions of dollars. That's the role I take. So you can find anybody else to be president or vice president. You could be the president. You find a good running mate. Maybe we can recommend. I'm trying to think who I would.
You wouldn't be my running mate.
I'd want to be one of the people that really controls the White House. I want to be one of the money people. That's what I'd want to be. I'd be one of the money people. I wouldn't want to be the president or vice president. That's no fun.
It would be very good for me to have a black man on the ticket. All right, maybe I'll ask Noma Langa. Maybe Noma Langa would have.
Noma Langa, or you could run with Dr. Umar Johnson. Do you know him?
I do.
Very smart black man. He should be president.
West, because I know. West, and I love Cornel West. No, but I'm not going to ask him. 2 Princeton people on the ticket, too much. Too much orange and black.
We don't need any more Ivy League in the White House or on the Supreme Court anymore. I just don't understand how this is where we are at. We're in the second week of March, and we're down